Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're diving into a story where the smallest things in the universe are being used to solve one of the biggest crimes on the planet. Imagine a rhino horn, a product so valuable on the black market, it drives a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise. Now, what if we could make that horn send out an alarm, a tiny invisible signal, telling law enforcement exactly where it came from? This isn't science fiction. This is the new front line in the war against wildlife trafficking, and it's being powered by an unlikely hero: nuclear science. The fight against the illegal wildlife trade, which pushes countless species toward extinction, has found a formidable new weapon. Far from power plants, a specialized field called nuclear forensics is giving investigators an unprecedented ability to trace the origins of trafficked animal products, shining a light on the shadowy networks that plunder our planet's biodiversity. So how does it work? How can we turn an elephant's tusk into a GPS tracker or a piece of timber into a witness? The secret lies in something called isotopes, and a fundamental principle we all know: you are what you eat. Every animal's body is a living record of its environment. The food it eats, the water it drinks, the air it breathes, all of it leaves a unique chemical signature, an atomic fingerprint locked away in its tissues like bones, hair, claws, and horns. By reading these fingerprints, scientists can create a geographical passport for a confiscated item, revealing where the animal lived. This information is a game changer for law enforcement, providing the crucial intelligence needed to dismantle trafficking networks, identify poaching hotspots, and build solid legal cases against the criminals responsible. To understand how a sliver of ivory can betray its origins, we need to quickly look at atoms. Every element exists in different forms, called isotopes. They have the same number of protons, but a different number of neutrons, which just means they have slightly different weights. For our purposes, there are two important types: stable isotopes and radioactive isotopes. Stable isotopes are nature's geographic recorders. They don't decay over time. Key elements for life, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, have different isotopic ratios around the world. For example, the isotopic makeup of rainwater changes predictably with latitude and altitude. When an elephant drinks this water, that unique hydrogen and oxygen signature gets locked into its tusks. Similarly, the carbon isotopes in plants vary based on the type of photosynthesis they use. This signature is passed up the food chain, from the plant to the herbivore that eats it. By mapping these natural variations, scientists create what they call isoscapes, detailed isotopic landscapes of the world. When authorities seize a wildlife product, scientists can analyze its stable isotope ratios and compare them to these isoscape maps to pinpoint its likely geographic origin. The key to unlocking these secrets is a highly sensitive machine called an isotope ratio mass spectrometer, or IRMS. In simple terms, it's an incredibly precise atomic scale sorting machine. A tiny sample of ivory or horn is converted into a gas. The atoms in the gas are then given an electrical charge and shot through a powerful magnetic field. The magnet deflects the atoms based on their mass. Lighter isotopes bend more than their heavier counterparts. Detectors then count the atoms of each type, giving a precise ratio. This data, combined with isoscape maps and knowledge of animal ecology, provides law enforcement with a powerful new weapon. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world, starting with the devastating ivory trade. For decades, law enforcement would seize massive shipments of ivory, tons of it at a time, but they faced a huge problem. It was just a giant anonymous pile of tusks. They couldn't link the ivory to a specific poaching event or region, making it nearly impossible to target the source of the problem. Isotope analysis changed the game. By analyzing the carbon, nitrogen, and other elements in the ivory, scientists can now create a detailed geographic signature. In one major study, They were able to trace seized ivory back to within a few hundred kilometers of its origin. That might sound like a large area, but in the vastness of Africa, it's often precise enough to narrow the source down to a specific country or even a single national park. This intelligence allows authorities to focus their anti-poaching efforts where they're needed most, moving from a reactive approach of seizing shipments to a proactive one of protecting elephant populations on the ground. But perhaps the most groundbreaking application of this science is the Isotope project in South Africa. The country is home to the world's largest rhino population and is the epicenter of the poaching crisis. The Isotope project takes a novel approach. Scientists drill a small hole in a rhino's horn and insert two tiny, harmless chips of a specific radioisotope. This radioactive signature is too small to harm the rhino or the environment, but it's big enough to do two crucial things. First, it devalues the horn. A primary use for rhino horn is in traditional medicine, and the prospect of consuming a radioactive product is a major deterrent. Second, and this is the brilliant part, it makes the horn easily detectable. Thousands of radiation portal monitors are already installed at international borders, ports, and airports to detect nuclear materials for anti-terrorism purposes. The treated rhino horn will now trigger these alarms. This transforms a passive security system into an active tool against wildlife crime, dramatically increasing the risk for traffickers. And this technology isn't just for animals. The illegal timber trade is another massive global criminal enterprise. Just like in animal tissues, the isotopic composition of wood reflects the environment where the tree grew. By analyzing the oxygen and hydrogen isotopes, scientists can trace a piece of lumber back to its forest of origin. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, is now working to create a global database of timber isotope data, which will allow authorities to verify the declared origin of wood products and clamp down on illegal logging. The applications are incredibly versatile. Scientists are using it on pangolins, the world's most trafficked mammal, to identify the species and origin from a confusing mix of seized scales. They're using it on turtles to distinguish between wild-caught and captive-bred animals, exposing a common laundering tactic used by traffickers. They're even using it on polar bear pelts in the Arctic to ensure that legal hunting quotas aren't being exceeded. Now, as promising as all this sounds, nuclear forensics is not a silver bullet. It faces significant hurdles. The biggest one is the need for comprehensive reference databases. To know where a tusk came from, you need a detailed isoscape map to compare it to. Creating these maps is a monumental and expensive task, requiring the collection of thousands of samples from known locations, often in remote and dangerous areas. Then there's the cost and technical expertise. Isotope ratio mass spectrometers are expensive machines, and they require highly trained scientists to operate. This can be a major barrier for the very countries that are on the front lines of wildlife crime. And finally, there's the legal challenge. For this data to be useful, it has to be admissible in a court of law. This requires standardized protocols and the ability for scientists to clearly explain this complex evidence to judges and juries. Overcoming these hurdles requires a global effort. This is where international cooperation becomes essential. Organizations like the IAEA and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime are crucial. They provide technical assistance, training, and equipment to help countries build their own forensic capabilities. They also support the coordinated research needed to build those vital global databases. The future of this fight lies in combining these techniques with other forensic tools. Imagine the power of pairing isotope analysis with DNA analysis. In a large ivory seizure, DNA can identify the individual elephants and link different seizures to the same criminal syndicate. Then, isotope analysis can pinpoint the exact geographic hotspot where those elephants were poached. Isotope analysis tells you where the crime happened. DNA tells you who the victim was. Together, they provide a complete story for investigators, building an ironclad case. The battle against wildlife trafficking is complex and daunting. But by harnessing the power of the atom, we are giving a voice to the victims of this cruel trade. The silent, invisible markers inside a poached tusk or a piece of illegal timber are now speaking out, revealing their origins and exposing the criminal networks behind them. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest solutions come from the smallest of places, the very atoms that make up our world. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.